All right, Shabbos, say good morning, good morning. Let us beginning by thanking all of our sponsors. Thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar. Stephen Terry Zinn for dedicating Oshirim this month in honor of the birth of their grandson, Matan Shmuel Aaron. Maybe Zocha Meretz Hashem to grow to an incredible Ben Torah ad Meve Esrim Shanim Tovos. To thank our Week of Learning sponsors, Haley and Ari Lichterman, for dedicating the Shurim this week in memory of Haley's mother, Rachel Leah Bas Ruvain Meir. We thank our anonymous sponsorship, Le'ilu Nishmas Saradina Bas Eli Melech, and the Ilu Nishmas Moshe Aaron Alter Ben Yosef Binyamin. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshamos Lavan Aliyah and the family Ein Nechama. We thank our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Pacey and Lisa Caden, in commemoration of the first yard site of Lisa's father, Carl Werner, Yaakov Couple, Ben Nachum Chaim Alevi, Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an Aliyah and the family Ein Nechama. And we thank our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Alan and Sue Meirowitz.
In honor of the birth of the first grandson for Rabbi Silber, finish it off with a bracha, Rabbi.
In Meretz Hashem, we should be zocheh to be machnis this little boy. B'riso sh'avim avinu bizmano, and his parents should be zocheh legad l'Torah, or l'chuppah, or l'maisim tovim. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. All right, we'll say with that, we didn't even arrange that beforehand, by the way. I just want to point out that was not choreographed. Right? Thank you, Alan. All right, we'll say let's begin. A lot to do today. So I will say today's daf is Lamed Daled 34. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem Rabbi Elazar, which is on Lamed Gimel base 33b. We are picking up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, oh God, 14, 16, 18, 20. A lot of lines up from the bottom. Right, so we'll say 22 lines up from the bottom. But we'll go quickly. So we'll say, so let's go weiter. So the Gemara says this also. Remember again, we had an interesting machlokes. Again, I'm not gonna wade too much into the geography over here, but you'll take a look at the maps that I sent you yesterday on the chat. Again, just to give you orientation, a machlokes exactly where Har Grizim and Har Eval were. Rabbi will say, here's what we know. Based on the Gemara, based on the Torah, Klal Yisrael, the first order of business upon entering into Eretz Yisrael was delivering the brachos and the klalos on Har Grizim and Har Eval. That was the first order of business. So the Gemara is just trying to figure out exactly where Har Grizim and Har Eval are in relationship to the Yarden. So Rabbi Elazar says, Halo hima be'eva hayarden, samoch liyarden. Rabbi Elazar says, but 1 second. Now he argues ultimately again on the first opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, namely that Rabbi Yehuda said Har Grizim and Har Eval a little bit of a distance from the Yarden. So Rabbi Elazar comes along and says, no. The pasuk says, Halo hema be'ever hayarden. What does ever hayarden mean? Right on the other side of the Jordan, which sounds like samoch yarden. Di'ime ever hayarden ve'eluch. Because if you think that Har Grizim and Har Eval are far away from the Yarden, Halo ksiv v'haya ba'avra chamas hayarden achari derech mavo hashemesh makom shachama shokas. Ultimately, again, it's where the sun sets. Be'eretz HaKnani, Eretz Chivihi. It's not Eretz Knani, it's where the Chivi lived. Hayoshev ba'arava, that stands in the Arava, the plains. Halo bein haram ugvos and yoshvin. But ultimately, again, Har Grizim and Har Eval are not on the plains. They're between the mountains and the valleys. To which the Gemara says, V'halo lo roes ha-Gilgal. I'm sorry, mul Gilgal, opposite Gilgal. V'halo lo roes ha-Gilgal. They didn't see Gilgal, right? It's not opposite Gilgal. So we'll say, therefore, according to Elazar, what do you do with this pasuk? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer lo ba'akosov. You're right. This pasuk is not coming to really give us a geographic location. Rather, it's coming to teach us something else. Allah haros lahen derech b'shniya kederech shehir lahen barishona. So we'll say, listen to this. The pasuk is coming to teach us that in the same way, when we traveled in the desert, ultimately, again, methodically, as we're going to see in just a moment, when we come into Eretz Yisrael, that is done methodically as well. So listen to this. This is so beautiful. Barishona, so the Gemara says, Barishona, derech. What does derech mean? Baderech l'chu v'lo b'sados. It means ultimately, again, walk on the road and don't walk in fields. Don't walk in fields. Ukramim, besides kramim. So I'll say when they're traveling, Kadosh Baruch Hu told Klal Yisrael, go ahead and travel ultimately again on the road and not in people's fields and vineyards. Hayoshev b'yishuv luchu v'lo b'mibaros. So travel in habitation and try not to travel in the deserts and wastelands where there's no resources. Ba'arava, in the plains. Ba'arava luchu v'lo b'har megvos. Walk on the plains and not on the mountains and the valleys. Okay, so therefore I will say, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov sees this more as an instruction as to how to travel, the pathway to take. Tan Rabbanan. Ketzor was beautiful. Ketzor Avru Yisrael Sayardain. How did Klal Yisrael cross the Jordan River? So B'chol Yom Aron Oseh Achrei Shnei Digal. We'll say normally when Klal Yisrael was traveling, the Aron would travel after two tribes, specifically the tribes of Ruvain and Yehuda, or Yehuda and Ruvain. Vayom Nosa Tchila. But when we crossed the Jordan River, the Aron fled. The Aron went first, which is pretty incredible. So the Gemara says, "Shneimar ve'hine Aron bris Adon kol haaretz over lifnechem." So we'll say that was change number one. So normally the Aron traveled after Yehuda and Ruvain. Today, when they crossed the Jordan, the Aron traveled first. B'chol yom v'yom nosin es ha'aron. Sorry, Leviim nosin es ha'aron. We'll say normally the Leviim carried the Aron. Now, to be clear, the Aron wasn't carried, right? The Aron was put on wagons. Then the wagons themselves. The wagon itself was led by the family of Kahas, right? Ultimately, again, Vahayom Nasal Kohanim. But on the day that we went ahead and we crossed the Jordan, so the Kohanim carried the Aron. And literally, the Kohanim carried the Aron. Not on a wagon, they carried the Aron. Shneimar, Vayakinoach Kapos Raglei Kohanim Nosi Aron Hashem. Tanya. Rabbi Yossi says, there are three times that the Kohanim went ahead and carried the Aron. When were the three times? Number one, when we crossed the Jordan River. Ultimately, again, when we encircled the city of Yericho. Remember again, Yericho was the first conquest in Eretz Yisrael, and Yericho itself was a very tall, walled city. So remember again, miraculously, the walls of Yericho come down after we do a bunch of hakafas, right? We circled the city a number of times. The Kohanim carried the Aron when we circled Yericho. And lastly, when the Aron was ultimately brought to the Beis Hamikdash, built by Shlomo HaMelech, the Kohanim went ahead and brought the Aron in as well. So we're not going to do it inside, but if you take a look at the last Rashi on the daf, so again, beautiful Rashi, a little bit of a historical snapshot of where the Aron was housed from the time we entered into Eretz Yisrael until Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis Hamikdash. But again, you'll look at that on your own. So I will say, so again, three times Kohanim carried the Aron. Number one, when we crossed the Jordan. Number two, when we circled Yericho. Number three, when the Aron was finally brought to rest in the Beis Hamikdash. But we'll say top of Lamedala 34a. The Chayvan, so back to the Jordan River. Back to Jordan River. The Chayvan shnitpalu raglei Kohanim b'mayim. We'll say this is so beautiful. So here's the imagery. The Kohanim are going ahead and carrying the Aron through the Jordan. Once the feet of the Kohanim touch the water, chazru hamayim lachareihem. Ultimately, again, Chazar literally means the water flowed backwards. Now we're going to see it doesn't mean the water flowed backwards. We'll see Shneimar ukivo no se Aron adayardin vayamdu amayim hayardim milamala kamu neid echad. The kamu govan. So we'll say essentially what ended up happening is, remember, the Jordan is a river. A river flows. So essentially what ended up happening was the river stopped flowing. Now, what's interesting is, as opposed to Yam Suf, where the water split in half, so to speak, so the Yarden, what ended up happening was the flowing water stopped. So remember, if the flowing water stopped, so the water, we'll call it in front of them, right, flowing downstream, just flowed, went away. The incoming water essentially kept flowing, but piled up. So if you can imagine again, there was a wall of water just simply piling up on their side. That's how the Yarden split. Literally again, it built up into one pillar. The Kama Gofan Shamayim. So we'll say how tall was the pillar of water? Shneim asar mil al shneim asar mil. It was 12 mil by 12 mil. Why 12 mil by 12 mil? Kineged Machanei Yisod Rabbi Yehuda. Because we'll say 12 mil by 12 mil was the size of the camp of Klal Yisrael. So these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. So we'll say Amrlo Rabbi Shimon. L'dvarecha Adam Kal Omayim Kalim. Ultimately, again, so I don't understand. We'll say it doesn't work, right? What moves faster? People or water? So Bipashtos, water is going to Havi Omer Mayim Kalim. Water is going to move faster. Imkain button my mishot finosan. We'll say if the water was only going to reach a top height of 12 mil by 12 mil, and at that point in time the water would continue to flow, there would still be Jews crossing the Jordan River once the water began to flow. Rather, Ela Malamed Mayim Nigdoshin Va'olin Kipin Agabe Kipin Yoser Meshlosh Me'os Mil. Rather, again, Rabbi Shmuel says, no, the water just kept piling up until when? Until all of us were able to make it through. And it was about the time the last Jew made it through, the water was piled up more than 300 mil up into the sky. 300 mil up until the sky, which I will say is absolutely incredible. Achiro, O son, kol malchi mizrach u'mariv. We'll say until all the kings and the east and the west saw the wall of water. Shnei Amar, vahi kishmol kol malchi amori asher be'eva hayarden yama. V'chol malchi aknani asher yam eis asher hovish Hashem esmei hayarden mipnei b'nei Yisrael ad Avram v'yamas levavam. So we'll say, so the pasuk details that all of the kings in the east and the west saw that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had split the water, and literally again their hearts had melted. So what do they see? What do they see? What do they see? They saw the wall of water. They saw the wall of water. The wall of water was so tall, ultimately again, that they saw the incredible salvation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and literally again, it almost like they felt defeated before the actual battle even started. Incredible. V'af Rachav Hazona Amar L'Shluchei Yoshua. Even Rachav the Zona. And I will say, well, we'll see, actually, we're going to talk about Rachav a little bit more. So there's machlokes what Zona means, right? Does Zona mean a harlot, or does Zona mean an innkeeper? An innkeeper. But the point over here is that, remember, when Yoshua sends spies, which of course worked out much better than the first Meraglim, right? When Yoshua sends spies, so Rachav hid them, and Rachav said, by the way, everyone's afraid of you. Everyone's afraid of Klal Yisrael. Now, interestingly enough, Rachav was talking about something else. V'af Rachav Hazona Amar L'Shluchei Yoshua ki shamanu eis asher hovish Hashem es meyam sof uksiv v'nishma v'yamas levaveinu v'lo kama od. So Rachav says everyone heard about the splitting of the Red Sea. So it's a whole discussion why this phrase is brought in here. Rachav was not referring to the splitting of the Jordan. Rachav was referring to the splitting of the Yam Suf. Okay, in any event, the Gemara chooses to add it in over here because Rachav also said, essentially, even before Hashem split the Jordan, everyone already heard what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did by the Yam Suf, and the truth is, the nations here already felt defeated by Klal Yisrael. Okay, we'll say point over here is, Jordan splits, but unlike the Yam Suf, which parted, that's what we'll call it, which parted, the Yarden simply stopped flowing. The flowing water kept building up into a wall of water as they crossed. Odam biyarden, Amar Yoshua, was this incredible Gemara. While they're still standing in the Jordan River, right? So they're standing in the riverbed. Amar Yoshua said to them, I'll say, by the way, I just want to point out, you of course know, if you've ever been to the Jordan River, right, so you think to yourself, split it, you could just kind of like walk across it, right? So just understand, if you go, I mentioned yesterday this Kasal Yehud, this area over here where they say Klal Yisrael across the Yarden, they have over there in the markings what the river level used to be. So we'll say, so the Yarden, especially biblically, was a massive body of water. So we'll say, so just understand, it's not necessarily the river that you see right now. So again, that's why it had to be split in order for Klal Yisrael to cross through. Okay, Odom b'Yarden. So we'll say they're still standing in the riverbed. Amar lem Yoshua. So Yoshua said, Du'u ama'atem over mes hayarden. So this is incredible. So Yoshua says to them, before you cross over, right? But before we get to the other side, know why you are crossing the Jordan River. Right? Why are you crossing the Jordan River? You are crossing the river, Abosai, to be conquerors. You are crossing the river to be conquerors. Right? So, right. See that's what Shnei Emar Valrashtem is called Yoshei Aretz Mipnechem. So Abosai, because the pasuk says you are to take possession of the entire land. Emata Osekin Mutav. If you are ready to be conquerors, good. Let's go. V'imlav bo'in mayin b'shot v'in osichem. I will say, but if not, the water is going to come to sweep you away. My osichem. What does it mean? Osichem, osiv eschem. Yoshua says, I will say this. I think there's 3 dramatic lessons in here. I will say, first of all, Jews should not be embarrassed or bashful to be conquerors. Right? In other words, we're conquerors. We're conquerors. Yoshua says, you come into the land, you're coming in for one purpose, and that is to conquer it, right? It's yours. It's yours, and sometimes to get what's yours, nobody's going to give you that which is yours. You must stand ready to conquer, which I will say is an incredible lesson in life in general, because what it teaches you is if you want something in life, no one's giving it to you. No one is giving it to you. If you want something out of life, you have to be ready to conquer. You have to be ready to fight. You have to be ready to do battle. That's lesson number one. But I'll say lesson number two is a din in leadership. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Klal Yisrael, if you're ready to conquer, we're going to go. If you're not ready to conquer, I get swept away with you. So you will say a good leader is a person is a leader who's in the riverbed together with his constituents, right? He's not in an ivory tower, right? He's not, you guys do this, but I'm going to live my life. The good leader says, my fate is intertwined with yours. Whatever happens to you, happens to me. We are literally in the same riverbed together. That's leadership. Too often leadership becomes, you do this, I'm going to do something else, right? This is what I need you to do. Me, I'm going to do my own thing. No, whatever was good. What is it? What is good for the goose is good for the gander, right? The leader says, we're in the same boat. I'm going to conquer. You're going to conquer. If you're in, I'm in. But if you're not going to, we all get swept away together. And I will say lesson number 3 is about clarity of vision. Clarity. See, what does Yoshua say? We're in the riverbed. We're in the riverbed, right? Yoshua says, do you understand what we are going to do? Because I will say, without clarity of vision about what you want to accomplish, you accomplish nothing in life. So many times in life, when we look at why haven't I actualized my goal? Why haven't I reached the finish line, right? Why do I feel like I'm standing still in life? It's not because of a lack of effort. It's not because I'm not willing to work hard. It's also often because I lack clarity of vision as to what I want to do and who I want to become. So if you don't have clarity of vision about what you want to accomplish in life, then at the end of the day, you might be working very hard, but you're not going to move yourself forward. 3 dramatic lessons. Leadership means being one with your constituency. If you want something in life, be ready to fight for it and conquer it, because no one's going to give it to you. And if you want to accomplish something in life, you must have absolute clarity of vision about what you want to do and who you want to be. Incredible. I will say, by the way, all of this given in the riverbed, right? Can you imagine paying attention to that drasha, right? The water is literally, right? The water is literally building up. I will say, incredible. V'odam biyardein, right? They're standing in the Jordan. Harimu lachem ish even achas al shichmo. Now I will say, it literally means every person should take a stone on his shoulder. Now it's not really every person. What it means is one person from each tribe should go ahead and take a stone from the riverbed. Lemispar shiftei Yisrael. Uksiv leman tiezos os bekirbechem ki yishalon b'nechem machar lemar ma'avanim ha'ila lochem. So we'll say simin la'abanim sha'avru avos es hayardin. So we'll say, so Yoshua tells them to take stones. And we'll say, what's the point of these stones? These stones are to serve as a memorial. A memorial for what? That we crossed the Jordan River. Odam biyardein. So they're still standing in the Jordan River. Yoshua, so we'll say, but it also tells you, obviously, how much larger the Jordan River was, right? Because you're like Yoshua, it takes 3.2 seconds to cross the Jordan River, right? So we'll say, so obviously, the Jordan River is much larger because he's having this whole drasha in there. Odam biyardein, Amar Yoshua, Sulacham mizeh mitoch hayarden mimatzav rak le'akohanim, hachin 12 avanim, va'avartem osam imochem, so Yoshua says, take stones. Now, boss, here's a bit more specific. He's saying, take stones from where the Kohanim are standing. Take them with you and bring them to where we are camping tonight. So bring them with us. I'm the Klal Yisrael is obligated to go ahead and take the stones every place where we camp. Therefore, Yoshua says, no, only bring it with you where we're going tonight. Amri Yehuda b'chalafta Rabbi Elazar ben Masya b'chanina ben Chachinoi amdu al osan abaras. So this is wild. Rabbi Yehuda b'chalafta Rabbi Elazar ben Eliezer ben Masya Chananya ben Chachinoi amdu. Rabbi say they saw the stones. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine seeing those stones, right? They saw the stones. Amdu means, Rashi says, badku. They checked. Al osan avanim, b'shirim kal achas v'achas shkula ka'arba'im sa'ah. So I'll say each of them had a weight of 40 sa'ah. Big stones. Ugemiri de tu'una demadli in shila kasvei tilsa de tu'une. I will say generally we assume, it's actually very interesting, that a person could lift and carry 1/3 of the weight that could be loaded upon them. It's actually very interesting. When someone puts a load on you, you could carry essentially 3 times as much as the weight that you could lift and put on your shoulder yourself. Does that make sense? Or the way the Gemara phrases it is, you can lift and carry 1/3 of the weight that you could carry if someone else put it on your shoulder. I will say, which by the way, is such a magnificent metaphor in life. If you are lifting on your own, if you are carrying the weight of life yourself, there's only so much you could carry. But if you have other people to help you shoulder, right, to help load the weight, you can carry 3 times more in life. We'll say, isn't that incredible? It's incredible. We'll say, this goes back to what we're learning in Shara B'tachon, because we're speaking about helping other people. We'll say, sometimes we encounter people in very difficult situations. And, people are often figuring out, what should I say? What should I do? And you have to realize that sometimes for people who have who are living through overwhelming situations, there's nothing you're going to say that's going to make them feel better, right? There's no pearl of wisdom. This is incredibly important because we spend so much time searching. What's that thing I should say for the person sitting Shiva? What's the thing I should say for the person dealing with illness? There's nothing you're going to say that's going to make it better. But you know what does make it better? Being present. Being present. Because sometimes that's what it's all about, being present. Why? Because when you stand shoulder to shoulder with someone who's suffering, you enable them to carry 3 times more weight. 3 times. If they're alone, they can only shoulder 1/3 as much. Together with other people, 3 times. I will say an incredible. That's what it means to be there for someone else. I would say that's the expression, right? The expression is to be there for someone. You ever wonder where that expression came from? Be there. Be there. Like beware. Be there. That's all. Just be present for that person. That's often all a person needs when they're struggling. Because now there's more people standing by my side. I have the ability to shoulder more weight. I'll say everything comes from Chazal. Everything comes from Chazal. Okay. In any event, incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. So mikanat mechashiv le'eshka. Saying, now watch this. So I say now, that's interesting. Because now that we're talking about that a person could only carry 1/3 of the weight by themselves that they can carry, as I should say, that a person can carry more if they're carrying with other people. So I'll say this gives me an incredible insight into the cluster of grapes that the Meraglim carried, right? This is the Meraglim by Moshe. I remember again when the Meraglim come back from their, right, and they delivered their disastrous report, they brought back fruit. I will say, just to be clear, why do they bring back fruit? Now remember, Moshe told them to bring back fruit. Ulekachtem mipri haaretz. Now, why did Moshe tell them to bring back fruit? Because again, he was hoping that they would see the ridiculous vitality of the land. Now, of course, the whole thing was turned around into something terribly negative, right? So again, but the point over here is just to be clear, the bringing it back to the fruit was actually not the Meraglim's idea, it was Moshe Rabbeinu. So watch this, watch this. So the pasuk says, so we'll say ultimately they carried the cluster of grapes, right? With a moat, I will say is a pole. So b'shnayim. They carried right by Yisrael and Moshe. They carried the pole with 2. So we'll say, we'll say it's repetitive. If you're carrying the grapes on a pole, I will say then obviously what? A pole requires 2 people, right? So why do you have to say b'shnayim? Watch this. So the Gemara says, we'll say first one line at the bottom. Why does it say b'shnayim? B'shnei motos. We'll say means, watch this. They carried the grapes. Actually with 2 poles. 2 poles. Shnei motos. Remember Yitzhak, tartani v'tartani de tartani. 2 sets of 2 poles. So we'll say, so essentially what they did over here is they carried 2 poles, but I will say, but each end of the pole had 2 people carrying it. So essentially, you had 2 people at the end of each pole for a total of 8 people carrying the cluster of grapes. 8 people carrying the cluster of grapes. HaKetzad, Shmonu Nasal Eshkol Echad. 8 people carried the cluster of grapes. Echad Nasa Rimon, 1 person carried a pomegranate. Echad Nasa Te'ena, 1 person carried a fig. Yoshua v'Kalev lo nasu klum. So we'll say, that, remember, that's only 10. What about Yoshua and Kalev? Yoshua and Kalev didn't carry anything. Why didn't they carry anything? We'll say one possibility was because of their chashivos. In other words, it would have been inappropriate for Yoshua and Kalev, given their status, to schlep stuff. The Baisema Shalo Hayu Ba'osa Eitza. I will say the other possibility is Yoshua and Kalev realized that what? Why are the Meraglim bringing back the fruit? I will say Yoshua and Kalev are going to see, realized very early on, that Lamaisa, bringing back of the fruit, was not a good idea, right? This was, even though Moshe Rabbeinu said to do it, this is not what Moshe Rabbeinu had in mind. So therefore, I will say they didn't carry anything. Why? Because they did not want to participate in what was going to be a debacle. So I will say, so Apligi bar Rabbi Amr Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. Chadim are supposed to say, now we're jumping back to the Jordan. Remember again, we'll say we're going to jump back to the Meraglim in just a moment. But remember, the only reason we got into the Meraglim was why? Because we were talking about the stones, which were incredibly heavy, 40 sa'ah each, and the Gemara kind of used springboard, or used that as a springboard for the conversation about how they carried the cluster of grapes. Back now to the Yarden. So it says the Gemara, Pli bought Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, Ba'cholis Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, Chad Amar, the Divi Rabbi Yehuda. One said that according to Rabbi Yehuda, remember, what did Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda said that when the Jordan stopped flowing, the waters piled up to a wall of 12 mil by 12 mil. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Amud Beis Rabbosai, Kechaniyasan Avru. When Klal Yisrael crossed the Jordan, they crossed the Jordan in the exact same formation that they camped. Now let's say, when Klal Yisrael camped, how did we camp? We camped in an area of 12 mil by 12 mil. So when we crossed the Jordan, essentially, we didn't break camp. We maintained the same structure. Now, of course, the one difference was what I was saying. One difference was what? When we camped, where was the Aron? In the middle. And the Gemara said, when we crossed the Yarden, where was the Aron? In front. So that was the one distinction. But the idea is just from the measurement of the camp, we crossed in the same way. So Rabbi say, using that logic, because we crossed ultimately again in a 12 by 12 mil, so too the water built up to 12 by 12 mil. The Rabbi Shimon, avru. According to Rabbi Shimon Rabbi, who says that no, the water built up to 300 mil, we actually crossed the Yarden single file. Incredible, right? Single file. One by one. The Chad Amar, Bein Mar u Bein Mar, Kechaniyasan Avru. Other opinions said, no. According to everyone, we crossed the Jordan exactly how we camped. Mar Savar Adam Kal, Umar Savar Mayim Kal. So we'll say, what's the machlokes? The machlokes is what flows faster, water or people? Which we'll say is another way of saying, did we cross the Jordan River quickly, or did we cross it slowly? That's really the machlokes. So the opinion that says 12 mil by 12 mil says that we crossed it quickly. The opinion that says 300 mil says that we crossed it slowly. Okay, incredible. Shlach l'chana. So we'll say, so now we're finished with the Yarden. So we'll say we're finished with the Yarden. Now, because the Gemara brought up the story of the Meraglim, we are going to discuss the Meraglim as well. Shlach l'cha anoshim. So we'll say, so remember again, beginning of Parsha Shlach. How are the Meraglim introduced? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, send for yourself people. Shlach l'cha, send for yourself. Amrei Shlakish, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, Shlach l'cha midaitcha. Listen, if you want to do this, it's fine. I'm not standing in your way. But if you do this, this is your idea. V'chi adam zeh borer chilek rali asmo. Because we'll say, would a person ever pick, right, choose a bad portion for himself? No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu essentially is saying, listen, I'm telling you to go to the land. If I'm telling you to go to the land, would I steer you wrong, right? Would I so for me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, for me, I don't need you to send the Meraglim, right? Again, because if I'm telling you to go there, that means it's good. V'aynu dichsiv, v'yitav be'inei hadavar. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu says, when you, Klal Yisrael, asked for Meraglim, I thought, okay, fine. Not a bad idea. But the idea being that this was an idea from Klal Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu signed off on it, the Ribono Shel Olam really was not involved in this. From the Ribono Shel Olam's perspective, at the end of the day, I don't need to supposed to. By the way, I just want to point out how incredible is this that it also fits into Shara B'tachon, right? So we'll say. So remember again, in the performance of Ruchnius, there's 3 steps, right? Step one, the choice to do something good. Step 2, the decision to execute on the choice, and step 3 is the physical actualization of that decision. Steps 1, steps 2 are my purview. Step 3 is up to Hashem. You will say, what was the mistake of Klal Yisrael? They decided to make step 3 their total business. I will say that's the chapa of the Meraglim. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to walk, we're going. But Moshe, step 3, that's yours. That's your domain. They decided to make step 3 their complete domain. And I will say, when you try to take the reins from God, things never work out as they're supposed to. It's just a different understanding of the Chit and Rag. That's what it is. There was a breakdown. Klal Yisrael didn't learn Shara B'tachon. We'll say, see what happens when you don't learn Shara B'tachon? All kinds of bad stuff happens, right? You don't know how to navigate life. Incredible. So we'll say the Gemara goes right to Amar Shlakish, Be'inai v'lo be'inav shel makom. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu says it was a good idea in my eyes, but not the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'yachperu lanas haaretz. So we'll say, so the way we translate this, v'yachperu lanas haaretz means let them go out and spy out the land. Amar Chibar Abba, meraglim lo niskavnu el leboshta shel haaretz. Now I will say, I just want to point out something very interesting. The Gemara here takes the approach that the meraglim, their intention was to undermine this entire process to begin with. And I will say, now you'll ask yourself, why? Why would the Meraglim want to undermine this process? So I will say, then it's safe, and actually a number of Mefarshim already in the Torah already discussed this dynamic, which is that at the end of the day, remember, who are the Meraglim? The Meraglim were men who held positions of high esteem within Klal Yisrael. What were they concerned about ultimately, again, if you go into Eretz Yisrael? Loss of position. And I will say, people do all kinds of crazy things to hold on to power. All kinds of crazy, even though, again, you'd rather go ahead and give up Eretz Yisrael for life in the desert. First of all, I just want to point out, Klal Yisrael's life in the desert was not a life of privation. Right, just to be very clear, there was a cloud, there was fire, there was mun, right? There was in-house laundry service, right? In other words, anything. It was actually, as far as like life goes, it was a pretty good life. It was a pretty good life without any real responsibility. So you have no real responsibility, plus you have power. Right? Baruch Hashem. Imagine how much time you have with no baseball. Right? Imagine how much more time there is, right? Should I say Salamaisa again, when you put that all together, so incredibly, so what do you have? Yeah, you have a pretty good reason to sabotage this mission. So I just want to point out that so again, not everyone subscribes to this view of the Meraglim, but that's clearly where the Gemara comes from. Well, it's also possible that when the Gemara says Lo niskavnu el leboshta shel Eretz Yisrael, that they wanted to undermine it, we'll say, sometimes in life we sabotage things, and it's totally subconsciously. Right? You know, this happens all the time. Right? So I don't consciously mean to sabotage myself, but subconsciously. So it's also possible that's what's happening over here. That subconsciously the Meraglim are ready to sabotage from the beginning. Okay, so the Gemara says, so what happens? So Amar Chibar Abba Meraglim lo niskavnu el leboshta shel Eretz Yisrael. Ksiv hacha vayachperu lanos es haaretz uksiv hasam v'chafra halavana ubo shachama. So we'll say over here, the Gemara is quoting the pasuk over here, which literally means the Levana will be ashamed, the sun will be embarrassed. This is talking about that the luminaries are embarrassed because they were used as idolatry. So they become embarrassed. So you see a lashon of chafra, a lashon of embarrassment. That from the beginning, the Meraglim ultimately, again, were looking for the embarrassment of the land. Eila Shmosam, these are the names of the Meraglim. Lamate Ruvain, Shamua ben Zachor. Amar Yitzchak, Davar Zem Mesaras B'Yadem Yavasenu, Meraglim, al shem ma'aseim nikru. Rabbi said the names of the Meraglim themselves foreshadow the fact that they were going to do something terrible in this mission. Rabbi say this is part of the motif expressed in the Gemara Maseches Megillah, where the Gemara says Minalan Dishma Garam. Rabbi say a person's name captures their essence. This is why the Arizal says that when parents name a child, they're given a degree of nevuah or ruach hakodesh, a prophecy. Why? Because a name has to capture my essence. What's the problem? Your parents don't even know you when they name you, right? For a girl, it could be immediately. For a boy, it's 8 days later, right? So, Lamaisa, how do you go ahead and find a name that captures the essence of your child when you don't really know your child yet? And the answer is divine. Like most things in life, divine assistance. The one I was pointing out over here is in the names of the Meraglim themselves are embedded. One could see that they were going to go ahead and cause the downfall of Klal Yisrael. So I'll say this is true in all of the names. We only have one example of this. Sisur ben Michael. We'll say, what is his name? Sisur Shesasar Masa Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Literally, he demolished or he destroyed the works of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that here HaKadosh Baruch Hu had in mind to go ahead and bring us to Eretz Yisrael, and he undermined that. Michael Sha'asa Atzmo Mach. Literally, again, he made HaKadosh Baruch Hu weak. Now, what does he mean HaKadosh Baruch Hu weak? I was about to say, he made HaKadosh Baruch Hu look weak. Because essentially, what did the Meraglim say? Right? The Meraglim said, the land is really great, but there is absolutely no way that we could conquer the inhabitants. So he made HaKadosh Baruch Hu look weak. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Af anu ne'emar, nochbi ven fafsi, nochbi shehechbi dvar shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He caused the words of Hashem to be hidden, meaning Hashem made a promise to us that we're going to go into Eretz Yisrael, and he caused the words of God to be hidden. Ufafsi shepisa amidosav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Literally, he trampled over the attributes of Hashem. Here, the Rebbe Shalom has so much ability, has so much strength, and this individual trampled over all of that. Vayalu banega vayavo ad Chevron. Rebbe says incredible. So they remember when Klal Yisrael, when the Meraglim came into Eretz Yisrael, where did they come in? They came in from the south. Vayalu banegev vayavo ad Chevron. Rebbe say, what's the problem? It's plural, right? They came in through the Negev. Vayavo, he went to Hebron. So what happened over here? Vayavo mibayla. It should say they went to Hebron. So Marava, Melamed Shepirish Kalev Me'atzas Meraglim. This is incredible. So Kalev went ahead. So see, here's what's incredible about the story of the Meraglim. It seems to be, from the way the Gemara frames the narrative, is it was clear already in the beginning that this was going to be a disaster. Remember again, about say, how long were the Meraglim gone for? How long were they gone for? 40 days, right? 40 days. But yet, I just want to point out, they come into the south, and already immediately, Kalev separates out from the group and goes to Hebron. Immediately, nothing happened yet. So you begin to see, again, this is the tragic part of the story. This was doomed from the outset. Or at least that's the Gemara's narrative of it. That already from the beginning already, again, it was clear there was never an intention to deliver a proper report. This was going to be tragic from the beginning. So the halach v'nishtatech al kivrei avos. Rabbi says incredible. Where does Kalev go? Kalev goes to Hebron. Rabbi say he doesn't just go to Hebron. Where does he go? Marasa Machpelah. Right? Because remember again, incredible. Rabbi say, where do you go when you are in trouble? Where do you go? You run to your parents. You run to your parents. And where are our parents? Our parents are in Hebron, right? Our parents are in Marasa Machpelah. So when I am in trouble, the first place I go, say that's why I think those of us who have had the schus to go to Marasa Machpelah, to go to Hebron, there's a certain serenity. There's a certain serenity and a certain warmth that you feel in Marasa Machpelah that you do not feel anywhere else in Eretz Yisrael. Not even by it's just a different experience. What is it? Because you're with your parents. Right? My whole life, all I want is to feel safety and security. Right? That's all I want, is to feel that I have the ability to be successful, that to feel strong. And where do you feel that most acutely? You feel that when you're standing in the close proximity of your parents. So Kalev realizes that this is going to be a disaster. So where does he run to? He runs to Marasa Machpelah. Amar lahen avosai bikshra le'rachamim she'nasam me'asas meraglim. He says, my parents, please daven on my behalf that I should be saved from the counsel of the Meraglim. Yoshua. So we'll say, so what's the shaila now? So I understand Kalev. Why didn't Yoshua go? right? Because Yoshua also, again, if Kalev felt that things were going south, Yoshua must have felt it as well. So why doesn't Yoshua go to Maras Machpelah as well? Boss is incredible. Yoshua kvar bikesh Moshe alav rachamim. Moshe already davened for Yoshua. Shene'emar vayikra Moshe liYoshua benun Vayikra Moshe laHoshea benun Yehoshua. Moshe Rabbeinu changed Hoshea's name to Yoshua. Now, why did he do this? Ka Yoshiacha me'atzas meraglim. The extra yud represents the name of Hashem. Hashem should save you from the counsel of the meraglim. V'ainu dichsev. Now the pasuk says, "Ve'avdi kalev ekev haisurach acharisim." That's why the pasuk says later on, Kalev had a different spirit with him, right? Kalev did not fall prey to the counsel of the meraglim. So we'll say, so incredible. So Kalev runs to Hebron. That's how he gets his chizuk. Moshe gave Yoshua chizikau by adding on the extra yud, and that's what gave Yoshua the power to go ahead and resist the temptation to fall in line with the meraglim. I will say, there's an Avi Yishayla. What's the Avi Yishayla? Moshe Rabbeinu, if you're proactively changing Yoshua's name, right, to adding a yud, that Hashem should save you from the counsel of the meraglim, say, what does that show you? What does that show you? Not a good idea. If it's not a good idea, so maybe one should avoid, right? Maybe one should avoid what's going on over here. So I want to say it could very well be that this phrase, in other words, if Moshe Rabbeinu knew what was going to happen with the meraglim, of course he would not have sent him. Just to be clear, right? Moshe Rabbeinu would have never sent Yoshua if he thought that what was going to happen was going to happen. I will say maybe it means like this. What's the lashon of meraglim? So I will say we translate it as spies. But ultimately, again, what's the real definition of meraglim? What's the shoresh? Regel or ragil? Hergil, to become habituated to something. I will say, remember, Yoshua was being groomed for leadership. I will say, what is one of the most important facets of Jewish leadership is the ability to see divine providence, the Yad Hashem, in everything. Because when the leader sees that everything is guided by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that enables him to inspire others to be able to see the same thing as well. The greatest danger for the Jew is hergel, is falling into the grip of habituation, right? Everything is just ragil, everything is just hergel, everything just happens. So perhaps the bracha that Moshe Rabbeinu was giving to Yoshua has nothing to do with the meraglim, spies, right? But rather, again, ka yoshecha me'atzos meraglim. Now we'll say, what's a meragel? A meragel is someone who lives his life with habituation. By the way, what was the sin of the meraglim? What was the meraglim? Everything was ragil. They removed God from the picture. God is not running the show over here. There's just hergel. There's just habituation. What's the bracha that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to Yoshua, his heir apparent? Ka Yoshiacha me'atzas meraglim. Hashem should save you from the counsel of people who want to remove God from the picture. Hashem should save you from those who want to just make everything in life look ragil, look ordinary, and remove divine providence. Because the moment you remove divine providence from everyday life, the moment you fall into the counsel of meraglim, people who just want to make everything ragil, is the moment you lose your ability to live effectively and for Yoshua to lead effectively. That was the bracha that Moshe Rabbeinu gave Yoshua. The bracha effectively was, you should be zocha to see Hashem in every single step you take in life. And be zocha miratz Hashem, to avoid the temptation to become one of the meraglim, to become one of the people who just look at everything as ordinary, removing the Ribono Shalom's hashgacha from everything. We'll have to stop over here for today. And we'll continue with the meraglim Hashem tomorrow. Wow, shkoyach, incredible. All right, Chevron Zoom. Great to see everyone. Eretz Yisrael contingent, Reb Jerry, Reb Michael, Reb Tzvi. Great to see everyone. And again, Michael, thank you for everything. All right, Chevron, have a great day.